Yesterday, I was working on creating some backgrounds on my seaweed-infused paper, and this one came out good, except that I did have some parts of it that tore because the paper, while it was wet, was a little more fragile when I tried to move it. But I was able to get a 16 by 20 piece that I can mount and use. The piece of handmade paper that I used to create the pattern, as you can see, did not fare so well during the rinsing process, although I'll be able to use these pieces in a mixed media collage. What I had done to create my work yesterday was what I usually do. I usually put my paper on a piece of cardboard, coat it with the solution, put something else on top, and let it go out in the sun. But I have to remove it from that cardboard in order to rinse it, and that's what led to this problem. So today I'm going to try a slightly different process and hopefully salvage a little more paper that is usable as backgrounds. I'm going to use the same process that I used yesterday, only this time I've put my seaweed-infused paper. I'll put a link to the company where you can get these called Plants, I think it's called Plant C UK. Excellent paper and lovely to work with this beautiful speckled seaweed-infused paper. And what I did, it's taped down really well because when I go through the rinsing process, I don't want it to be disturbed by the water rushing over it. I'm going to wet it, which just really, I think, helps absorb the cyanotype solution. I'm working outside and not terribly worried about exposure to the UV radiation because I'm working quickly and I'm doing basically a wet cyanotype, so it doesn't need any drying time. I'm not putting any plant material or true stencils to get an image. I'm just going to use a patterned paper to create a textured image in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and put one coat going side to side and another coat going top to bottom. My paper is saturated, and now I'm going to take my patterned paper, which I get from a different company, and I'll also put a link to that. It's a very neat, very pretty patterned paper. And I'm going to lay that over the top, and then I'm going to tape it down really well on top. Before I apply the cyanotype solution, I'm going to spray this with water to help it begin to adhere in place, like so, and pat it down. And then again, I'll apply the cyanotype solution on this piece. What I end up with, if all goes according to plan, is a piece of seaweed-infused paper that will have this pattern imprinted on it, and then this top sheet will be dyed the cyanotype blue and still have those threads of fiber running through it. And my hope is that by doing this on glass and not removing it during the rinsing process, I'll have a piece that remains more intact when it rinses. This one I'm just going to put one coating of cyanotype solution because some of what's underneath on the seaweed paper is also being absorbed into these fibers. Like so. And the next step, I'm simply going to tape firmly all the way around. Okay, it's taped down. So both layers are taped down, one on top of the other. It's a bright summer day early in July. So I should be able to have this process probably 10 to 15 minutes. I'll have it process it the way I'd like it. So we'll take it out in the sun and check it in 10 to 15 minutes. It's been probably less than 5 minutes. I just took some things indoors, and you can see there's already color change. It's going from white to a teal, kind of a teal green color, and I'm going to let this go until it turns sort of an amber gold kind of color. So we'll check it in about 5 more minutes. Okay, this looks ready. If I pull away a corner, I can see the process just a little bit here. It's looking good. You can see how fragile this paper is that I'm using as my pattern. Very, very fragile. So I'm going to have to keep my water very delicate while I'm doing the rinsing. All right, I have my water on just as a very light sprinkle, and I'm standing a good bit away, and I'm just going to gradually go back and forth, wetting the paper. And you can see it's rinsing off the chemicals. They are harmless to the grass around. I even sometimes use rinse water when I'm working outside to water my flower beds. So it's no problems, and I've never had any problems. Right, now that it's nice and wet, I'm going to tip it. So I'm going to shut the water source off. And I'm just going to lift it very gently to let the water run off. It is not fully rinsed yet. But I can see that it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to give it another round and then tip it again. And the goal is to not see any color running off. And right now I'm still seeing a light, kind of a golden greenish yellow running off. So that tells me I still have chemicals in it. Okay, I've moved the piece into the shade to dry. At this point, I'm not going to try to lift the top layer. The bottom layer, the seaweed-infused paper underneath, is going to need to be rinsed as well. But first I need to have this piece dry enough that I can safely lift it onto some cardboard or another sheet of glass. The coolest thing did happen while I was finishing up the rinsing. A hummingbird came by for a little drink as I out of my hose, and I wish I had my camera on because it was so cute, and it's never happened before, so it was just kind of a fun little thing. But I know he was headed, or she, whatever, the hummingbird was headed over to my fuchsia plant where I have a few blooms getting started, so kind of cute. I've pulled back that top patterned layer, and you can see underneath I have a really nice image started. This is still extremely fragile, even though it's been about 3 hours since I originally started this project. So I'm going to very carefully move it over to a piece of cardboard, a little bit at a time, in the hopes that I can salvage most of it for use in another project. So we shall see. I have it. Right, it is folded over on itself on a piece of cardboard with some minimal damage to the paper itself. So I'm just going to let it dry and out here in the shade. And I'm going to work on rinsing this, but I'm going to need to put some more tape along this side right here. I'm going to use the same very gentle rinsing process. And then tip it and rinse it. It still has some yellowish spots, so I know that it's not completely rinsed off. And I know from experience yesterday with the other piece that it's going to have to dry a bit until I can see all the areas that still need to be rinsed. So I'm going to let it wash off, and then I'll come back in a little while and see if it needs any further rinsing. But it's going to stay taped down, because my goal is to keep it from shredding or tearing. This one took a while, actually almost 24 hours, but it was well worth the wait because I had it taped down really well and was very patient with it. This piece is the seaweed paper piece. Came out really well. No real tearing, just a little nidgy little corner here and there. And a few places that didn't totally rinse out, but I'm very happy with this. It did take a lot of rinsing, rinse, dry, rinse, dry, but overall I'm happy with it and it's very useful. But what I'm especially happy with is the way the original thin paper that I used as my stencil, how beautifully it came out. There's a little tearing around the edges, a few tears up here, but overall, because I had it taped down securely during the rinsing process, it has maintained its shape quite well and it'll be a very useful piece for another project. So very successful. So tape to glass, tape this piece down, cyanotype solution, put the stenciling piece on top, tape it down good, repeat the cyanotype solution, let it process out in the sun, and then rinse very slowly, bit by bit, and let it dry in between steps. Well worth the wait.